Hello, I'm Joanne Witt. I'm on the clergy staff at Calvary Presbyterian Church in San Francisco, currently covering for Associate Pastor Joanne Lee, who is on family leave and sabbatical. Welcome to this video-recorded adult education opportunity highlighting the work of San Francisco Achievers, one of Calvary's partners in our Breaking the Cycles of Poverty initiative. 6 years ago, Calvary committed to investing substantial time, talent, and treasure to 4 outstanding organizations that provide needed educational, job-related, and affordable housing services to those seeking to leave poverty. The mission of San Francisco Achievers is to support African American young men in San Francisco to lead and thrive in higher education and beyond by closing the opportunity gap. San Francisco Achievers does this through college scholarship, leadership training, and mentoring. Students benefit from a community of support that starts with the staff of San Francisco Achievers and extends to volunteers, businesses, and nonprofits throughout the Bay Area, including Calvary Presbyterian Church. Before we begin our program, I invite you to join me in prayer. Please pray with me. Breath of God, let there be abundant life. Inspire in us, through San Francisco Achievers, a vision of poverty ended throughout your world. Give us the faith, courage, and will to help make that happen. Thank you for the voices we'll hear today. Open our hearts to hear them with love and with hope. Amen. Today we'll hear from Dwayne Wilson, who's Executive Director of San Francisco Achievers. Dwayne will tell us about the good work this wonderful nonprofit is doing to support young Black men through high school and college. After we hear from Mr. Wilson, Calvary member Amy Ovalle will moderate a panel of Calvary mentors and their mentees. The panel discussion will focus on the students who will share their experiences and perspectives with us. So now, San Francisco Achievers.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dwayne Wilson, Executive Director of San Francisco Achievers, and we are truly honored to be a part of the Calvary Adult Education program. Now, one of the wonderful things about San Francisco Achievers is that we're not a brand new organization. This actually makes our 12th year of existence, continuing to empower our young men here in San Francisco, and as they continue to go, not just locally here in the Bay Area or even throughout the state, but we're blessed to have students that are able to continue their studies across the country and even different parts of the world. But in many cases, that takes a level of resilience that we're starting to see a lot that's happening in this nation, especially in regards to racial equity, some of the work that people are being part of the different marches for Black Lives Matter. And one of the ways that we try to imbue that sense of strength and justice, part of that can come from our San Francisco Achievers Pledge. And our San Francisco Achievers Pledge is, I pledge to be resilient in the face of adversity by challenging myself socially, emotionally, and academically to achieve the best me that I can be. As a citizen of the world, I vow to lead my community in leadership, fellowship, and stewardship. I am success, I am a scholar, I am a San Francisco Achiever. Now, when we look at what's going around the world, and especially when you get a chance to hear from many of our scholars and their mentors, it's a powerful moment when you can see a student interact with their mentor, as well as finding out some of their experiences in college. In many cases, we hope that once students are able to complete school, they're able to come back and be mentors. And that has a multiplying effect for generations to come. One of the reasons why I say that is that I'm actually a great example of that. Although I'm a strong advocate for the work that we do here, I'm actually not from the Bay Area or California. I relocated from Chicago back in 2018 to grow and develop the work here in San Francisco Achievers. But as a younger man, when I was in college, it was a great way for me to build a number of different skills and things that I didn't just develop by myself, but I also had a mentor as well. Matter of fact, I had a few mentors to help provide life advice for how to adapt to be on a campus where I'm very much the minority. How to work on my different business skills, networking skills, communication skills. These are the types of skills that aren't just relevant and applicable during their college years, but they've been able to help serve me well beyond college as well. And even in a period of time, I was actually a college professor as well. So as our students get a chance to build relationships, get a chance to build skills, we are very honored that Calvary has been a strong supporter in the work that we've been able to do here with San Francisco Achievers. But for those of you that may not be quite familiar with San Francisco Achievers, let me give you a little bit of insight. Well, the mission of San Francisco Achievers is to support African American young men in San Francisco lead and thrive in higher education and beyond by closing the opportunity gap. And we do this through college scholarships, leadership training, and mentoring. Now, as great as we can provide four-year college scholarships as well as leadership training in our high school programs, the mentoring is a great way of being able to build bridges, build relationships, and hopefully be able to build lifelong partnerships between our students as well as different professionals in a variety of industries. But to give you a little bit more details about our programs, we have a high school program where currently we're in 5 schools. And at our schools, we don't just have staff there that are just standing there. We have staff that are doing phenomenal work engaging our students, from one-on-one check-ins to actually hosting lunch sessions where we have students from freshman all the way through senior come together and learn a variety of different leadership skills, whether learning health and wellness, they're learning about financial literacy, they're learning about how to be strong advocates for their academic support, they're learning about culture, they're learning about civic engagement, volunteering. These are things that our high school advisors work with our students multiple times a week and are always accessible in order to help them overcome challenges. So we are very grateful for Calvary members that have been able to be speakers, that have been able to help provide resources. This is just something that we've always been very, very encouraged and proud of. Next, we have our Leadership Academy program. And Leadership Academy is a program that's designed for our seniors that have applied during their junior year. And what this program does is that during the school year, we will meet on select Saturdays once a month. And part of that is to be able to build necessary skills to not just apply for college or apply for scholarships, but how do we connect them to their peers? One of the big things that we've learned is that even though we may serve students at particular high schools, in many cases we have students that may live in the same neighborhood or even on the same block, not know each other because they go to different schools throughout the school district. So this is an opportunity for these students to come together, build relationships, and ultimately we hope they get a chance to go beyond Leadership Academy and eventually apply for our college program. Our college program is a process where our students are able to not just apply while they're seniors in high school, but after they get a chance to apply, and if they're selected, once they qualify, we have interviews. And our in-person interviews allow not just the staff and our board to get a chance to know the prospective scholars, but it's also a great way for our community members, whether it's current mentors, whether it's other organizations. It's a great way where we will get a chance to have our students meet and interview to learn about how you effectively communicate when you're interviewing, how to really articulate the gifts and challenges, but also the wonderful opportunities and accomplishments that they've been able to do while they're in high school. And hopefully they'll be able to translate well into college. And so from this experience, from an in-person interview, Calvary has been a phenomenal partner for many years by not just providing different parishioners to be able to help interview, but be able to help us organize logistics, providing food, overall have been a great partner in making sure that it's a wonderful experience for our students as well as for all the guests in attendance as well. Calvary has also been a great partner for when we have our award ceremony. And our award ceremony is an opportunity to celebrate the accomplishments of our scholars before they go on to college. So this is a great way where we continue to strengthen those relationships. But speaking of relationships, we are always grateful for those who want to be able to be involved on a deeper level. And one of the ways to get involved on a deeper level is to be able to support us either as a volunteer, but also in particularly as a mentor. Uh, what we look for in mentors are these people that are engaged, are these people that are passionate about what we believe in, supporting and developing these young men and encouraging them. And we only require 1 year for commitment. But what's been fantastic is that we've had many mentors not just say, hey, you know what, I want to commit this time to the student during their freshman year of college. Many cases, they've been able to stay with the student all the way through college and even beyond, from building that strong relationship as well as it turns into a strong friendship. In many cases, almost like a family member. These are great opportunities where our mentors have been able to help our students with internships, job opportunities, or just simply being a caring adult that's there to assist them with whatever they need. We're always looking for people to be able to continue to grow our network. And so we're always looking for people to either become a mentor, volunteer for a variety of different events. We're looking at ways on not just doing physical worksite visits, but in response to the pandemic, also doing virtual work sites, as well as letting us know if organizations or if your company or firms are offering internships, as our scholars are always great candidates to be able to take advantage of those opportunities and not just make us proud here at San Francisco Achievers, but hopefully they'll make you proud as well. Now, one of the big things on why we continue to develop and build these skills and these relationships is that this is something that pays dividends for generations to come. We know that many things are happening around the world, especially in terms of racial equity and justice. But one of the big things that we want people to know is that we're always here to support our students. We're always here to continue to listen, not just to the students, but we listen to the community, we listen to our partners, and that's what continues to make our program more effective. But also we build relationships so that way it goes with part of my statement of a rising tide raises all boats. As we continue to work together with Calvary and many of our other partners, who knows what the future will bring for here in San Francisco and beyond. Now, one of the driving forces for me, as I said earlier, that I had a mentor, and what continues to push me and motivate me is that one of my favorite verses in the Bible is a portion of Luke 12:48. And part of that verse has, to whom much is given, much is required. Many cases, we may be able to have a variety of different resources and access to whether it's time, treasure, or talent that we may have in our own life and our own networks. But if we have an opportunity to volunteer, give of our time, give of our resources, this is a great opportunity that can continue to build our students and also show that despite whatever differences we may see on the surface, we're all alike. We're all one family, and we can all continue to build this world together. So I thank you for coming to the presentation on learning about San Francisco Achievers, but the real treasure is when you get a chance to hear directly from our students and alumni on how our organization and their mentors have been able to make an impact, especially in what's going on in the world. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to San Francisco Achievers panel of mentors and mentees. My name's Amy Ovalle. I'm a member of Calvary Presbyterian, and I'm also on the board of San Francisco Achievers. I am so happy to be able to today share the stories and perspectives and wisdom of this great group we have gathered with you And thanks so much for being with us. The format for today will be as follows. First, I'll introduce our panelists, and then we are going to first hear from the mentors about their experience, and then we will get to the heart of this panel, which is our scholars, or achievers. Some are post-scholar at this point. So if you guys can please raise your hand as I introduce you. We have Richard Amici and his Calvary mentor, Jane Bryson. We have Binyam Tekliagorges. Raise your hand, Binyam. Can you hear me?
Yep.
There we go. And your Calvary mentor is Stephanie G. And we have Daniel Ogbana and his Calvary mentor, Leo Gelreath. And all these guys have spent, I think, 5 years together having this wonderful journey that is a great stepping stone in the lives and careers of all these wonderful young men. So mentors, I'd love to just jump in and maybe just tell us a little bit about being a mentor, you know, how long you've been a mentor, did you have any training or experience, and what was satisfying about it? Maybe we can start with Stephanie G.
Sure. So I'm Stephanie again. I've been a mentor about 5 years, I think. Yeah, to Binyam, and no prior experience. I was a little nervous, not knowing what we would be able to talk about. But from our very first meeting, we probably talked about like 3 hours about just everything. So it's been a rewarding friendship that we've developed. And even just yesterday, we just again talked about really deep and interesting things. So I've learned a lot from Binyam, actually.
Oh, that's fantastic. Jane, I'd love to hear about your experience.
So I've also been a mentor since 2015 when Calvary pretty much got into starting this program. There were a few students, I think, the year before. So I've been Richard's mentor all the time since he was a senior in high school, going into senior in high school. And the thing that I thought was really great about the Achievers that made me want to volunteer is that it's a program that not only provides some financial support for college, but also provides training while the students are in high school and support college, including a mentor to help them really overcome the challenges of getting into college and succeeding there.
That's fantastic. And Leo, I'd love to hear from you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leo. I don't know where to start. I've been doing this been a mentor since, I believe it was since 2016. That's when I first met Daniel. And it's been a very rewarding program. It actually ended up, mentoring me to some extent. It was very fun. It was a lot of fun doing it, a lot of fun offering assistance and just having to use a lot of insight, not just to do or say the right thing, but to really, truly think critically about what would be good for Daniel's success and his motivation in the future. He proved wonderful. He just took the bull by the horns and took it himself. I'm like, whoa, this kid is something else. So it was great.
Oh, that is amazing. And I had the privilege of being a mentor as well, not nearly as long as you guys did. And I look forward to doing it again. And, I think everyone can use a sounding board in their lives, and so many problems that greet us every day. It's tough to go it alone. And it's a really beautiful thing to have a partner to go through this. Now, I'd love to hear from our achievers. Richard, I'd love to hear a little bit about where you grew up, your experience with the Achievers, and then did you work with Achievers in high school, and of course college, and then maybe your experiences. And I know you had a unique experience in Japan as well. Maybe just tell us a little bit about.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, I have been involved with Achievers since I was a junior in high school. And that's when I was paired up with Jane. That was actually the most ideal time to have a mentor because of the transition from high school to college. In high school, you're tackling a different issue with like looking for scholarships, looking for what schools I'm trying to apply for. And so we actually came up with like a whole list of schools and like my ranked choice of what school I want to go to, and also like a whole spreadsheet of scholarships. So it was like a lot of support that I was able to receive from Jane my junior year and senior year of college. And then in terms of my support from SF Achievers throughout college, it's just been amazing to have a scholarship follow me throughout my journey every single year, being able to reconnect with some of my fellow scholars and also be able to, have these reconnecting events where I can see how other mentors and how the staff are doing. I think I like that part the most. And then also just being able to have that financial support that'll help me study abroad. I was able to study abroad 3 times in college. So I'm in rare air. And so I'm very fortunate for those experiences. I've been able to go to Ghana, Ethiopia, and then my senior year, I spent it abroad in Japan, which was honestly a very unique experience in its own, just being able to spend almost 7 months in Tokyo, living abroad. Before COVID-19, due to the pandemic, I had to come back home. But I'm still pretty grateful for the whole experience and just being able to, learn from it and be able to graduate in 4 years. I'm very grateful. So.
Oh, that is fantastic. Binyam, can we hear a little bit about your experience with the Achievers?
Yeah, definitely. So, I joined Achievers, as Richard said, my junior year in high school. And, I was paired up with Steph. And, since then, we've been like best friends, She helped me out with everything since applying to colleges and also just picking on deciding like which college I should go to and things like that, but also Achievers, since junior year, they've been helping me with, everything financially, just, matching me up with Steph and things like that. They've been very helpful. And, me personally, I came from Ethiopia 10 years ago, and, my parents didn't really offer much when it comes to this college discussion and things like that. So Steph was my go-to. She would help me out with, things like that. And it's just she's been my best friend and, everything. And, I decided to go to Ohio Wesleyan because, the resources in a small school tend to be a little better than bigger schools, especially for me, as a second language English learner and stuff. But then Steph, my freshman year, I struggled a little bit because it was a different environment than I actually, grew up in the Bay Area. So it was a bit challenging. I struggled my freshman year, and my sophomore year, I was thinking about moving out of Ohio, but I had people like Steph who spoke with me and helped me decide on what steps I should be taking and stuff like that. And I'm really glad. I did a study abroad in Tanzania my sophomore year. That also kind of helped me in deciding what to do after and stuff. And I'm glad I stayed in Ohio. Got a different perspective in life, and here I am, a college graduate now.
That is just an incredible story. What perseverance you learned, and I'm just so thrilled that you guys had these amazing experiences abroad. I know that's not an option for a lot of people, and it is so eye-opening. Daniel, we'd love to hear about your experience.
So I started Achievers, if I believe I'm correct, in 2011. My freshman year of high school. Actually, San Francisco Achievers was a class at Wallenberg High School. And that's where I met the great Dr. Henry Seyfried. our founder, he actually knew my older brother because my older brother was a Mason scholar. So that's, my last name was familiar to him. But I didn't get introduced to Leo, I think, till like 2015, 2016, that area. So yeah, I've been a cheer for a long time, since I was a freshman in high school, since I was pretty much a baby. And now freshman high school all the way to now, finishing college. Yeah, it was definitely a great experience. I will have to say that Leo always figured how so he had apparently he had a sixth sense about me. He'd always pop up in the right times. Like just when I needed like a little extra guidance, or if I had a lot on my plate, Leo would just be there. I just get a random phone call and like, yeah, this is like Leo came at the perfect time. Just always perfect timing. It was just when I need to talk, just pretty much update him on my life. For me, my college experience, I stayed home. I didn't leave. So I born and raised in San Francisco, and I went to San Francisco State. So I didn't have the chance to study abroad, but I did do a lot here in terms of ended up playing Division I rugby for San Francisco State. Ended up joining the first intercollegiate fraternity for African American men, working in law enforcement, all while going to school full time. So it was definitely a busy experience, but I stayed home, and just it was always great to have Leo pop in and out, right when I need him, right when I talk or kind of lay out what's on my plate. And yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. I think I'm going to call you guys overachievers now, not just achievers. Hey, I think I'd love to hear from you guys about what's going on in the world right now. I know it's a time of great tumult and change. It was interesting at our Achievers board meeting last week. One of our other board members said he grew up a block away from Rodney King in LA, where Rodney King happened. And so it's really shaped his experience his whole life. And he said something surprising to me, and I felt a sense of relief actually from hearing this. He said that he has so much hope right now because there's so much involvement worldwide in this discussion, and it's never been it's always been a smaller group of people. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting thought. I'd love to hear how you guys are experiencing it. Have you gone to the protests and sort of just how it's shaping your world right now? Maybe we can start with Richard.
Yeah, so it's really shaping my world significantly. Just seeing the brutality of my people by law enforcement, it's really hard to watch. It's really shameful. We live in a first developed country, and things like this is happening. You don't see this happening in any other country that's advanced or calls themselves developed. It's pretty primitive to be paying for something and paying for a system publicly funded by our tax dollars, and that's not working, clearly not working. And it's a political issue when it really shouldn't be. It's just really shameful. And I was able to attend protests both in San Francisco and Oakland, peaceful protests, where I was able to listen to speakers, talk on the issue about defunding police and police reform, etc. But ultimately, emotionally, I'm just tired. I'm tired of seeing death and casualty. I always think of what if that was, someone I knew, a friend, even a family member. It's just really hard. And just understanding that, being a Black man, I'm subject to this type of injustice by law enforcement, regardless of being a college graduate, regardless of whatever status I may hold. And that's probably the scariest part for me.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think it's absolutely been a shocking time for all of us gathered here today. Biniam, you want to share your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sad and like, tired by like, what we're seeing. And it's just like crazy, like, this is still happening in 2020. And, like I'm hopeful the steps that we're taking, like protesting, and a lot of people are supporting the movement all over the world, not just in the United States. but you know, I feel like we people need to do a bit more, and you know, like, you know, find something that we can do, you know, other than like also like protesting and stuff, because you know, this really like not acceptable, and you know, it's just sad to see this things happen to like my black brothers, and you know, hopefully like things get better, you know.
Daniel, you come to this from a really interesting perspective because you, as you said, you've worked in law enforcement and you're just finished the police cadet program, I believe. This puts
I'll
you.
explain all that later.
I'd love to hear what your.
So from my perspective, working in law enforcement, so I was a cadet with San Francisco PD earlier in my college career. And then I transferred over to San Francisco State University Police Department, where I did a lot with working in community police relations. So I did a police citizens academy, and I also worked as a CSO, which is a community service officer. And so working under through that department, I learned a lot about, you know, how police are trained, the culture of policing. And so I get the best of both worlds, right? Being a black man in America it shouldn't be a death sentence, right? And it's like what's happening now is like, it's really disheartening to see that this is still going on throughout the years. Like, you think there'd be change and some type of reform, and you know, it still kind of continues. But for me, my thing is that there's a problem, and when we do problem solving, trying to get to the root of the problem is key, right? And so I feel like most of it is definitely a lack of education on both sides, right? A lot of people in the community are not aware on how police are trained, right? Which I really do encourage people to, you know, talk to police officers, or, you know, go through Police Citizens Academy and kind of really get that idea. But also, police officers around the nation also have to realize and understand, you know, that the community is hurting, right? Police officers also have to understand, you know, the real true history of policing and the true history of how it affects our communities. And that's really where the root of the problem is, on educating, right? People don't understand that policing actually originated from runaway slave patrols, right? And eventually that formed into, you know, the Army for the United States, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And then we look back at it, you know, we look back at police officers who take the oath. Their oath is to serve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. If we look back in time, when the Constitution was written, were African Americans considered people, or were they still considered slaves, right? And so now we're getting really technical, right? Now we're getting into depth on where the root of the problem is and where the source of the problem is, right? Now, a lot of police departments, even actually SFPD is one of the most diverse police departments in the country, right? But it still goes down to the level of training. How are police officers trained? You know, I truly believe that it all comes down to training on how they need to be, you know, educated on ethnic studies, on different ethnic groups from different parts of the world. They also need to have at least look for people who have degrees in sociology, psychology, counseling, these type of things, so that they really truly understand like how people think, and then also have that cultural background and learning to see how different cultures, you know, adapting to this country, right? Because if you look at the beginning of this country, it had to do with a lot of people. Like, we celebrate, you know, Columbus Day, but we don't really understand the depths of what Columbus did, right? Go to different countries and take slaves and then come back to America, right? And then, but also wiping out the indigenous people that live there in America, right? But, you know, we celebrate Columbus Day, we celebrate them for him discovering the Americas, but in history books in school, we don't really talk about, you know, the gruesomeness of slavery and how that has an effect on the Black people here today, right? We don't talk about, like, it's little simple things. If you look at things like Aunt Jemima, that has to do with slavery, right? If you look at the song Jingle Bells, that actually had to do with, you know, slave owners putting bells on slaves so if they ran away, they could hear them, right? You have to look at like these little tiny, you know, things that we, you know, consider to be normal, right? But they actually originated from slaves. If you look at the population here in the United States, if you look at Asian people, Hispanic people, people who are from the Middle East, their names pertain to the region of the world that they're from, right? But you see a lot of African American people who have the last name Jackson, the last name Johnson, right? These people, these last names, you know, come down from slave owners, right? They, you know, and African American people are really the only people in this country who have been completely stripped of everything, right? Do we know how many African, cultures and nations and languages and religions that have been wiped out from slavery, right? And all that comes down to now, right? We all know all lives matter, right? We all know nobody ever wants to take a life. All lives do matter, but all lives cannot matter until Black lives matter. People have to understand that Black people have gone through so much. A lot of other people, Asian people came here, Hispanic people came here, people from the Middle East have come here on their own fruition, right? Or for reasons, tried to escape, political freedom or, massacres or persecutions in their own country. People have come to this country for that reason because it's supposed to be the land of the free, right? African American people, you understand their struggle is systematic, right? Systematic racism is the problem, right? And a lot of people have to kind of start to really have that click on their heads. This is what needs to be taught in school, right? That young Black and brown kids, when they're born, they're already born 5 steps behind of everybody else, right? And we have to look at the system that, everyone is protesting. The system was built on, white supremacy, right? Now, not at all am I saying that, white people are racist, not at all, right? But there are some people who do, racist things or say racist things, or who still believe that's the way. And we all have to understand that that is taught, right? Race is a social construct. Race was created by people in that time to differentiate other people in order to keep power, in order to maintain power, and then marginalize other people into oppressed groups, right? And all this is funny because I wrote a paper on this for my senior thesis. I wrote a paper on this. It ended up being 40 pages, but I had to condense it to 25. So I actually have a lot of information on this topic. But if we really look back at it, the system of white supremacy is the problem. And I'm not like I'm saying, not all white people fall under that, but the system that, when it comes to capitalism, when it comes to money, when it comes to anything else, the system of white supremacy is the problem. And so now we have to really look at the problem because some people are taught to be racist. Really, it's just in there. It's just that's their culture. They have taught that, they are better than other people, right? And now if you look at that, if you look at like instances like the instance in New York with the woman and her dog in New York, or if you look at the instance, it happened, I forgot what city it happened in, but the man in the gym with all the young Black men, right? And we look at that, people who are racist or people who choose to be a part of white supremacy, such as Ku Klux Klan, right? They are threatened, right? And they're honestly petrified at the fact that Black people could be their equal and or superior, right? And that threatens their system of power, right? And then that's the root, right? That's why they call police to have, the person removed from whatever situation is, or it's like, yeah, African Americans attacking me, assuming that the police are going to come faster, right? Assuming, like, if you look back at it, what was the original job of police? Runaway slave patrol, right? To either catch and or kill runaway slaves, right? So now we look, now fast forward now to the future, right? Now we have all these instances, right? Now we see that, police departments are built on oppressed and racial systems, right? Now we have to, now we're starting to understand these things, right? But these are what the things that need to be taught. Like I said, when I first started talking, it all comes back to education. These are the things that need to be taught in schools, right? The origins, the gruesomeness of slavery needs to be talked about, right? To understand why are we celebrating Columbus Day, right?
So, Daniel, I think this is I think this is something that seems new to
I know, sorry, I went over a little bit. That's my bad. I'm so sorry. That's my bad.
No, it's super interesting, and you have a unique experience that I love hearing your thoughts and the fact that you wrote on this. So you've done a lot of research and stuff. But I do think the systemic piece and the education piece are just essential. And I love your candor. Thank you. We're running a little bit over time, so I would love if you guys could share any thoughts. Maybe we'll start with Biniam. Just if you can leave us with any thoughts about the ways that SF Achievers has helped you guys get through any of the barriers that Daniel was sort of talking about, that obviously are created in the system here in the U.S.
Yeah, of course. So, as Daniel said, that like education is like the main thing, to get through like these things. And, SF Achievers have really like enabled me, to attend a 4-year school, private school, and I've got my education, and I've you don't really get to learn most of the things in school because like the curriculum is very like Eurocentric, but through SF Achievers, we've learned many things, and we've been trying to like educate others. And me being in Ohio, sometimes you meet people with like different perspective, and like I try to like teach some people that was like around me to like know these things are like very systematic, and it's like not everybody comes from a, a same background, and a lot of people don't really like get to learn about these things, or they just like grow up in a different community and don't know the struggles that we go through. And I think sometimes all it takes is like education and like them understanding what we go through, and people understand, like once you like teach them about these things, they have like a different view on this thing. So education is the key, and we need to do better on that.
Thank you so much, Binyam. Richard, does anything give you hope right now? You've seen a lot, you've been to a lot of different places. It sounds like this is a really hard time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little too early to say for hope. I do think that this last series of killings by the police is maybe the straw that broke the camel's back. And so now we're seeing a residual impact on companies and how they're responding, and how individuals and peaceful and not peaceful protesters are out. So I'm hopeful, but I still think there needs to be more change to come. But I don't want to repeat what Binyam said, but just going off of a little bit of what he said in terms of education being key. SF Achievers did provide us with the foundation to basically eliminate the perpetuating stereotype of Black men and being stereotypes of criminals, etc. And giving us that tool for education in which we can use to further ourselves professionally. And so I'm very grateful for that, and I just think that with that education and that degree to our name, like it's a step in the right direction. And the more of us that have tools and resources that can make positive impacts, I think that's going to be ultimately what's going to help change this system.
Amen to that. To our panelists, I am so grateful for this wonderful conversation. I feel like it could go on so much longer. There's so much to be said. Thank you to our mentors for providing such great, relationships with these young men that are just rocking the world and making change and giving me a lot of hope. And I also really want to thank Binyam and Daniel and Richard for being here and sharing your stories, and for giving us an insight into what's going on. And then I can't wait to check back in with you guys and just see what happens and how you're gonna conquer the world. So thank you all, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for joining us today. A huge thanks to San Francisco Achievers and Dwayne Wilson, and to Amy Ovalle for moderating the discussion. Thank you so much for the students who participated in today's conversation. Thanks as well to Kathy Baer, who coordinates Calvary's adult education programs, Betsy Dodd, who co-chairs our Faith in Action team, and David Barnes, who helped put the video together. There'll be a slide at the end of this video, which will give you more information and ways to connect with Calvary and San Francisco Achievers. Watch for more of Calvary's adult education videos. There'll be more coming up in the future, and you can also see previous episodes by going to Calvary's YouTube channel. Just search Calvary Presbyterian Church and YouTube. Thank you, and have a lovely day.